Hey everyone, and welcome to this quick little editing tutorial. Since I've decided to take my studio in the Photoshop free direction, I wanted to show you that it doesn't mean that your photos are going to look like they do when they come out of camera. I'm still going to be doing things like color toning and using light and shadows to create epic art with your images. I think in our minds, when we hear the word no Photoshop, we automatically assume that it's just going to be the photo as it was taken in the camera, when in fact that's not true, because I still need to make it look like my art and my style, and that's where colors come into play. So I figured, what better way to tell you about that than to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I've compiled a few of photos from recent sessions here, just different lighting scenarios, different people, and so on, to show you kind of my process when it comes to editing. So we're going to start first with Miss Megan's photo here. So this is what it looks like straight out of camera. Now this image was taken with a studio light, so the lighting is going to be slightly different than if it was shot with natural light. So the first step that I usually take is running through over here is a bunch of presets, which basically do the color toning for us. Now in the studio, when I say I'm not going for it, I'm not going to be doing Photoshop, I primarily mean I'm not going to use Photoshop to change the way a person, like to change a person's skin. I still can use Photoshop to manipulate colors, but ideally most of the work will be done in this software system called Lightroom here. So basically I've compiled a bunch of different color settings that I'm able to apply and adjust to the image that I desire. So you can see it can bring into it can create a life of its own. So for this particular shoot, usually it takes me a few tries to figure out kind of what the mood is for. For this particular shoot with Megan, we were collaborating. There was a few of us involved, Megan, Kelly, who did the hair, and so on. So I would take that into account based on the feel or vibe we were going for, and that would dictate the colors. So I just scroll through until I find one that kind of like that. I love that. It's got a very cool like doll look to it, very vintage, and so on. And then I might just play around with my little system here to kind of make it either a bit more bold or to bring up the shadows. Whatever I'm really feeling to really bring home the image, so to speak. It really depends on what I'm going for. This one has a bit more of an old film look to make it look painterly. That's why there's this grain in it. But ultimately it amplifies the pastel nature of the image, which I absolutely love. So then I might go through and adjust some colors a bit more just to make it more in line with what I personally enjoy. And this is where kind of photographers' creativity can come into play, because if they do any sort of color toning and things like that, because two photographers may have the same camera and shoot the exact same thing, but ultimately the way they view it or experience it will want to come through in the final product, which is where color toning comes in. So when we talk about color toning, this is exactly what we're talking about. Basically taking it from what it looks like into something completely different. And it might just be different for myself. A fun fact is that I'm actually inspired by music. So if I'm listening to certain types of music that make me feel a certain way, it is going to actually have an impact on how I edit images, either making them cooler or warmer, really just based on the sounds that I'm hearing. And I realized that after watching a sci-fi show, when all of my stuff was toned like really bluish, light, very cold colors. So I think it's interesting to know that it could, on 2 different days, I might edit an image slightly different just based on that. Especially with studio creative shoots, I tend to take a bit more creative liberties than I do with client work. So we're just going to apply one here. Let's go. I should have just left the one that was on it, but I didn't. So now we get to pick another one. I like the ones that bring out the color of the hair. So really most of my time is spent just like going through and finding which ones I feel best tell the story of the model. Now, some of you may not like the editing, but that's okay. You're entitled to your own opinion, and that's exactly what art is all about. Just taking it and making it your own thing. So, yeah, and then that would be that. So this next one over here was taken in my studio on the Luxurious Goddess set. And this particular image is natural lit. So all the light, aside from the ambient lamps, but they don't really add a lot of light, all the light is coming from the window over here, which creates this highlight coming across the bum and the back, and you can see her back muscles. Now, I do notice a little glitter on her foot, so I would go into Photoshop to remove that little glitter there, because obviously that's not part of her. It is for the shoot, but not for life. So chances are, if you're in my studio, you will end up with glitter on you in some capacity. So there's a few different ones that I love to use for this particular set because it really pops the colors. This is one of my favorite ones over here. It just makes everything vibrant and really shows off the texture, the luxurious feel of the image. So that's one of the ones there. And you can see that what it was is not a bad photo. This is a beautiful photo. And simply with a few tweaks like this, I could also make it just like by making the contrast a little different. It's still a beautiful image. But to give it more of that artistic flair, I would take artistic liberties, we'll call them, to add a preset on to make it in line with my current style of work. Something really important to note as well for photographers is that we are always changing our style, always trying new things, testing out new presets and things like that. So over time, our style is bound to change, and personally, I think that's a good thing. That means we are growing, learning, and prospering, which is a great thing. The worst thing you want to do is get stuck in a rut of editing one way and not really growing, because times change, things change, and so on. So I like this one. It's a bit more warm than the other one. It has a bit of grain in it, still pops out the colors a little bit, and that's one of my favorites. I named it after one of my friends, Kevin, who is an amazing photographer as well, when I tried to emulate his editing style. So yeah, so that's basically how I would take a studio lit photo from that to that, a little darker, just because I like a little more mood and contrast to it. All right, then we have Miss Reagan outside. Yes, this was such a fun shoot. This was part of a Universe Decides photo shoot. And again, I'm going to go through and just select the ones that I think would do justice for the shoot that we were doing. Obviously, I want to make sure, because of her skin tone, I want to make sure that I'm doing it justice as well. You can see sometimes with black skin, it can really change the way it looks. Making it purple, making it yellower than it actually is, and so on. So it's really important as a photographer that we pay attention and ensure that our client's skin is as close as we can get it in camera. Now, that being said, if you're doing a creative art project, like a creative session where maybe the whole idea is to just have color, then obviously you're going to take civil liberties there. But I think if you are working with a client in an intimate nature to give them photos of themselves as themselves, you want to make sure that they look as much like themselves as possible. So I really like this one. It kind of dulls the greens a little bit, which is great, but still keeps the oranges really vibrant, and gives it kind of that nice outdoor look, which is beautiful. Oh, she's gorgeous. So yeah, so it just bumps it up a little bit, gives it a little pizzazz. Again, it's not taking a photo as it was shot exactly. It still allows us to have the creative input to be able to share the artistic side of it. This here is Miss Natalie from another Universe Decides photo shoot. This one was shot with hard light, which means the sun was directly on her, which is why she's looking at me and not at the sun, because she would be blind otherwise. So I had her look directly at me for some of them. And yeah, and same kind of thing. I'm just going to go through, like, personally for this shoot, it was all about power, and and because that was what the cards decided for us. So I really liked having like kind of a darker sky up there and really making everything just kind of, I don't know, deep, rich colors. So this is how I would edit it. Again, this is what it looked like. Beautiful photo, nothing wrong with it. But the colors to me just don't really tell the story that I want to, whereas this to me tells more of the story that I wanted to. All right, and we're back in the studio with Miss Camille here. If you haven't watched it yet, please head over to, oh, you're probably on the YouTube channel if you're watching this, but this particular shot was taken as part of the first series, a series of flaws episode with Camille, where we wanted to basically just show my couch poses and showcase her cellulite, which is something she's always struggled with. And this is like one of my favorite poses ever. So again, because this is in studio, more similar to how I would shoot clients, usually I like to do these as black and white. Just the way, I love the way the light comes in over top, comes down here, and it brings your attention directly to her face up here, which is beautiful. And then again, I'm just going to tweak it a little bit to bring it down. So it's not that we're not making the photos artistic. Taking away Photoshop just means I am not going to be fucking around with her skin, essentially, aside from taking out her bruises here, which are not permanent on her skin. So if I wanted to go with a color, I would go there and just up it a little bit, taking care to make sure that we even it out. Now, one of the hard things to do, and a lot of times people get upset when they see tan lines. So, for example, most people's upper bodies and arms tend to be a bit more warm or orange, and their bums and backs tend to be a bit more cool because we rarely walk around with our asses out. And so it can be a bit of a disconnect when we look at it to say like, oh, well, my body's like 3 different colors. But I had a mentor once tell me that tan lines are actually like a really big fetish for people, and it is something that is really sexy because you are letting the viewer of the image see something even the sun does not get to see. So tan lines tend to be a bit of can be a sexy thing if you look at them that way. It's all about reframing your mind. But ultimately, there are ways that we can reduce colors in some areas and not in others and so on without affecting the skin texture. But again, my favorite is the black and white version of this. Ta-da! Last but not least, yours truly is me. To achieve this soft blur effect here, this was done in camera. I put something, filter on my camera, which basically blurs the plane of focus, and it created that, which is good because I'm actually not wearing any underwear in here, so you're not seeing my hoo-ha. In any case, this is totally naturally lit. From over here, you can see the bright window and the light on my body, so this is straight out of camera. To edit it, again, these ones are pretty well developed for my studio, so I like to use them. It shows off the bright or the rich colors, the greens, the blues, the burgundies, and so on. And it allows me to achieve my iconic moody style without sacrificing the color. One of the things that I think I've become relatively well known for is my ability to create moody photos as opposed to light and airy. So this is one way that I do it. Some of my favorite presets, if you're a photographer watching, this will be more important for you. Some of my favorite presets that I use include the Archipelago ones. I am an affiliate for them, but that's only because I literally bought them all. Essentially, they are some of my favorites. My favorite though are the Nomad ones, and I use these inside, outside, and so on because they give just kind of a beautiful kind of vintage effect. Everything's warm, and definitely once fall time rolls around, these beauties are going to be utilized a lot. I also, weirdly enough, love this sepia toned black and white. At first I was like, I don't know about that, but I've used it in a lot of different sessions, either making things like super high contrast, like one of my favorite photographers. It works really well, and so on. So these are like my new faves. Anywho, that is that. So basically, that's what I wanted to show you, is that I think a lot of times people think that, oh, like when they hear there's not going to be Photoshop, they think that, oh, it's just going to look like you just like popped it out of the camera and there was no work put into it. And that's not true at all. We still take a lot of care in making sure that the images are in line with our style, our current style, again, that's bound to change, are in line with our current style and representative of the art we want to create and the mood we want to create with our clients together. So yeah, so I basically just wanted to do this little thing to show you that yeah, just because we're going Photoshop free does not mean you are going to have super basic photos. They are still going to look epic. They are still going to have that TERI flair to it, because it all starts with the basics of lighting first, and then the color pops just happen more so in the Lightroom. Basically, the thing that we are going to be removing is simply the step that involved, which was the more laborious part of this, to be honest, was the skin retouching, which means the removing of certain skin textures and things like that. So yeah, so you don't have to fear, we're not going to just make everything completely as we call them, raw files. You will have fully edited, beautiful images. You'll still look like yourself. And I think that's really important. Awesome. Well, thank you for listening. And if you hung out that far with me, thank you so much. If you're a photographer, want to get your hands on some of these Archipelago presets, feel free to check the description. The link will be in there. If you are liking the content that I am putting out on this channel, please feel free to like and subscribe. If you really enjoy the content, please share it, because a lot of the stuff that I talk about is applicable to a lot of people. And maybe I'm biased, but I think it's interesting. All right, that's enough about me. Enjoy watching this, and I will talk to you later. Bye.